You're listening to the Parts Pros podcast, the only podcast made specifically for automotive parts professionals. We're here to dive into the latest industry trends, expert strategies, and real world solutions to drive success and boost your parts department bottom line. I'm your host, Amanda Poe, an automotive marketing expert with more than a decade of experience helping dealerships drive growth in the ever evolving digital landscape. And I am joined today by Emily and Ibrahim of Revolution Parts. Emily has been in the e-commerce space and is a parts group guru with more than 5 years of hands-on experience working with OEM and aftermarket parts industry leaders. Welcome, Emily.
Thanks for the warm welcome, Amanda. We have an awesome guest today, a great topic today. I think this is going to be a great episode, and I'm excited to jump in and talk about it.
Yes, I am very excited. The reason we're really all here is Ibrahim Mesbah, who is the CEO of Revolution Parts. He's been in this industry for over 11 years and is here to share his wealth of knowledge about the state of the industry today and where we are headed in 2025. Ibrahim, welcome.
Hi, Amanda. Hi, Emily. Thank you for having me, and excited about the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Would you like to share with our audience just a little bit about your background, maybe your experience in the world of parts and e-commerce?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. It all started a bit over 10, 11 years ago when Revolution Parts was founded. But prior to starting Revolution Parts, Andreas, my co-founder, and I were at PayPal and really grew a big passion for payments and e-commerce. And, what opened our eyes to the opportunity was, one of our friends that, was a parts manager at a local dealership here in Phoenix called Showcase Honda. And always talked about how hard it was to sell parts online. So we saw it as an opportunity to really take a lot of our passion for e-commerce and solve a lot of these challenges in automotive, which, as you all know, is a pretty massive industry, right? So we started the journey about 11 years ago and really excited about transforming the way parts buyers and sellers connect by removing a lot of friction, right, every step along the way.
That's awesome. I want to dive right into it because I have a lot of really important, really kind of heavy hitting questions for you today.
Sure.
So I want to start with, a state of the industry question. I think a lot of people in this industry think that your traditional dealership model is going away. And I want to hear your opinions on that. And if it does go away, what do you think is replacing it in 2025 and moving forward?
That is a pretty, sure. So, right. I mean, I think the dealership, the traditional dealership is evolving, right? And we saw with COVID, a lot of behaviors changed very quickly. A lot of consumers were comfortable going online and purchasing a vehicle. Obviously, we've seen the rise of Carvana, which is a pretty innovative online dealership, right, based out of Phoenix. And we see a similar, what we've seen is COVID kind of helped change consumer behavior where we're all very comfortable now shopping online, even for big things like cars. So, the traditional dealership has to evolve to also cater to these expectations, right? And a newer generation that frankly expect to be able to go online and do their research and purchase and self-serve, right? Without having to pick up the phone and call the dealership, right? So we believe that the dealership's going to evolve to really embrace digital across all channels, not just for vehicles, but for vehicles, service, and parts, and right, and really meet those expectations by a lot of the newer generation consumers, including the local customer that's across the street.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Tesla was a great example of that prior to COVID, and now after, in a post-COVID world, as people like to say. I think that internet shopping it's the way that most people are surviving. And a dealership used to have to just advertise in their backyard. You needed to be really familiar with your geographic area, with your zip code, and bring people in from your backyard. But now people are shopping from dealerships that are hundreds of miles away because they can do the entire buying process online. So as people are moving more towards, this e-commerce model, not only for buying their car, but also for buying their parts and servicing their vehicle, why do you think so many dealerships are still resisting this e-commerce model?
So just a couple of things, right? One is dealerships felt that, well, the local customer is going to call me or drive into the service lane, right? And our pitch has been, well, we can help you improve those service levels, right? Even your local customer, like we said earlier, can go online. They should be able to self-serve, do their research, know exactly whether you have it in stock, how much it costs, and even have it delivered to them within hours, right? If you have it on the shelf. So there's perceived complexity around going online with parts. And there is some complexity. Like we're not going to say it's easy, right? We try to make it easy. We try to take care of a lot of that complexity so that the dealership can be online easily, and then provide them the tools that they can use to run that online business for parts, right? It's an extension of their parts counter. There's also some fear, frankly, of things like, for example, fraud, right? It's a lot easier to commit fraud on a $60 part versus a vehicle, right? But, we try to work with our customers and provide a lot of best practices and do things like screen the order before it's received, right? To try to reduce this as much as possible. But, our job, what gets us up every day is to try to remove a lot of friction within that selling process, right? So that more and more dealers can embrace going online with their parts department. We believe that this is a when, not an if, right? Just like today, we can't imagine a dealership not having their inventory of their cars, right, used or new online. But yet, we have 20-30% of dealerships that have any online presence for parts. So we believe that pretty soon, hopefully, like everyone's going to have an online presence for parts, just like they do on the cars on the vehicle side.
Absolutely. I do remember those days when nobody had their inventory online.
Yeah.
While from an advertising perspective, they were much easier days. Now having the entire inventory online from a shopper perspective does make things a lot easier.
Yep. No, absolutely.
Okay, I want to move on to the next question. And here's another one. I'm sorry, I'm giving you all the hard-hitting questions today. I know that a lot of dealerships, their goal is 100% absorption rate. I personally think that's a myth. I think a lot of people in this industry think that's a myth and that it's just a completely unattainable goal. So let's talk about the 100% absorption rate myth and what it takes to get there, or at least close.
Yeah, and it's really cool to see a lot of our customers really get pretty close to over 75 and some over 90 and 100%, right? And what's funny is you can pretty much look at the profile of the leadership at the dealership and figure out what their absorption rate is, right? So a lot of dealers obviously understand that you need higher absorption rates to really sustain the dealership and keep the lights on. And if you've moved up the ladder from parts or service, you typically understand that very well, very firsthand, right? But yeah, it's all about embracing parts and service, right? I believe that the future dealership is going to have a lot more service base, right? Parts are getting more complicated, more sophisticated, need some calibration and special tooling. So that independent repair shop is going to be less equipped to handle the service business, right? So where are they going to go? They should go to the dealership, right? So I think a lot of that real estate is going to evolve into having more service bays and techs and all the machinery and equipment that's required to do those repairs right. And that should help a lot with absorption rates, right? So customers or dealerships that have higher absorption rates typically do wholesale, both serving collision body shops, but also IRFs that are nearby. They also embrace e-commerce and either are part of a tier 1 national store. They drop ship orders for other retailers, or they have their own online presence or sell on a marketplace. And we can help, right? So, embrace parts and service across channels, and it's not going to be a mess anymore. It's achievable, and we see it every day.
So really the only way to success when it comes to absorption rate is to embrace parts and service and to use every channel physically available to you.
That's right.
You can't just use one channel anymore. And you've got to appeal to the younger audience, right? I think Revolution Parts just had a piece that came out not that long ago, how to attract Gen Z buyers. And it's because, and we talked about this the other day in a meeting, it's because people that are of the younger generation don't want to talk to people. They want to be able to do things without too much human interaction. And
They want to be able to do things on their phone, right?
Absolutely.
And that's, and we're seeing this happen more and more. So you have to appeal to the younger generation and meet the demands, right, in this form, right? They don't want to, and frankly, most parts departments are short-staffed. So we don't do, a great job at picking up the phone and serving that customer anyway. So let's remove that phone call altogether by having all the information online and enabling that local buyer to shop and even have the part delivered to them within hours, right?
Yeah, you're I think we call them YouTube mechanics now. You need the part delivered to you quickly so that you can fix whatever it is you just broke in your own garage.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, that was all the questions I had. Emily, I think you wanted to talk about EVs.
Yeah, Ibrahim, you began to touch on this a couple of minutes ago, but as the popularity of EVs grows, we're seeing a shift, as you said, in components and systems for vehicle maintenance that these independent shops simply can't meet. So, we're looking at EVs that don't have the exhaust systems, that don't have fuel tanks, that, our combustion engines have, which means different maintenance, different parts. With that in mind, how do you see the rise of EVs impacting fixed ops profitability over the next decade?
So, no, thanks for that question, Emily. And this question comes up quite a bit, right? Like, how are things going to evolve with EVs? They're going to obviously evolve quite a bit, right? So the way we see that going is, right, so today, I believe we're, around 7 to 10% EVs when you look at vehicles on the road, right, in operation. The average age of the vehicle is still over 12 and a half years and probably going to go up over the next couple of years. But eventually, the EVs, again, embracing technology and digital, right? A lot of the EVs still have a lot of parts that need repairs, right? So if you remove a lot of the combustion engine parts, right, and actually forget about EVs. Even today, when we look online at what's actually selling, 75% of those parts, and again, if you exclude body hardware and bumpers and things like that, 75% of parts sold online, mechanical parts, are really parts that belong in this wheel well, right? Those parts are not going away. Those are the parts that move more than other parts, right, that are subject to a lot of wear and tear. And we see a lot of those parts, even brake components, are getting more sophisticated, more computerized, and more expensive, right? But parts around the wheel well represent about 75% of the dollar volume, right? So we don't expect that to go down. We expect that to actually go up. But you're right. Like, obviously, some parts are just going to go away completely. What we're excited about is a future where this EVs or cars in general can phone home, just like the Amazon, the printer can order new ink when it runs low from Amazon without any human interaction. Imagine EVs or just modern cars in general, if they're able to, contact the dealership, find out if things are in stock, be able to provide a quick estimate on the repair, including service, and maybe even schedule an appointment in the future. Isn't that, like, that's really cool? Like, we're really excited to see how the connected car evolves and how, every dealership and Revolution Parts can help play a part in making that transaction seamless.
Now I'm just imagining my car texting me and saying, change my brake pads.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to cost you this much, and your local dealership has it in stock. And, I see you have these 4 open slots on your calendar this week. Would you like me to set up an appointment? Right? I mean, that would be super cool.
That would be really cool. So to put this conversation to bed once and for all, your parts department, your service department are not going to go out of business because of EVs, because 75% of the parts in your vehicle are on every vehicle still have to be replaced regularly.
That's right. Yes.
All right. That's good, but that's also bad. From a consumer perspective, it'd be really nice if we could have everlasting brake pads and everlasting tires. But in the meantime, at least we know that the dealerships are not going out of business.
No, again, we really think there's going to be a lot more business going to the dealership, right? Because a lot of these repairs are getting, like I said, more complicated and sophisticated, right? And you need skills, tooling, machinery, calibration. Things are getting more expensive, not getting cheaper, right? So the
Getting more
parts
expensive,
are
which means people are going to keep their vehicles longer, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ibrahim. We so appreciate you being here today. That is all the time that we have for today. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out. That's all for this episode of the Parts Pros. Thank you for tuning in. For more information on the Parts Pros and our official e-commerce sponsor, Revolution Parts, visit partsprospodcast.com. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, or wherever you catch your latest podcast, or on our website, again, at partsprospodcast.com. And don't miss our next episode. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.